Hey everyone, I thought I would bring you a Dragonite video for once. Um, I've been using this in, I've got two builds, one for PVE and one for PvP. I want to stress at the outset that the PVE build is really just for dungeons, veteran dungeons and normal dungeons, 4-player content. This is not meant for trials of any kind or anything like that. The idea is that I don't really care for the trials and in-game PvE, but I do want to run dungeons so I can get gear for all my characters to PvP with. And so this is what I've come up with to help me do that. Hanging out here at my house now, which is a great place to record because there's no one else running by making noise. Anyway, so starting off, here's our stats. Unbuffed, I have my food active, that's about it. I'm using Tri-Food. Longfin Pacey with melon sauce. And so you're looking at my stats there. 14k Magicka, 28k health, 31k stamina. Now, health, it could be a little bit better, but I don't want to alter my stats too much. I got 10 points in the health, 54 in the stamina. I don't want to alter them too much because it really messes up what I'm doing in PvP. Generally they say 30k for a tank. I get pretty close to that, but honestly you're going to be blocking most of the time, and you have plenty of stamina for blocking and plenty of magicka for recovering that stamina, and so that's the emphasis on this build. 30k is if you're with a good group, it's no big deal. I mean, 28k is just fine. Honestly, you could even do less if you have a good group. But the idea is you want to be able to have a decent amount of health in case you need to survive a one-shot or one-shot maneuver. So, like I said, 14k in health. Now you notice I have magicka recovery, about 1400 magicka recovery, but only 750 stamina recovery. Well, the idea is that if you're blocking all the time, you're not going to be able to regen stamina recovery anyway. And so, for Dragonites, we have a very useful passive. Let me point this out. So the last passive in Earthen Heart, Helping Hands. When you cast an Earthen Heart ability, you restore 5% of your max stamina. Now, generally, we're only going to be using one of these, and that tip for me ends up being Igneous Shield. It's a great shield. It's actually very useful for other reasons I'll get into later. But the idea is that you are able to recover some stamina even while blocking, because this will give it back for you. Now it costs 3600 mana, so you're not going to be sitting there spamming it with 14k magicka. But again, if you have a good group, you have maybe a temple to throw in your shards, using repentance, that kind of stuff. It'll get you by. And the other passive that's very helpful, if I could locate it, I think it's right here, or right there, Battle Roar. When you cast an ultimate ability, you restore 43 health, 24 magicka, and 53 stamina for each point of the ultimate's cost. Basically, when you use an ultimate, you get all kinds of stats back. So that's the other goal here, is that we want to use our ultimates as a means for sustaining the build with getting our magicka, getting our health, and getting our stamina back if necessary. Honestly, except in the more difficult vet dungeons, which is relative, you're going to be pretty self-sustaining if you know what you're doing, and even as a stam DK, or probably I'd be better off as a magicka DK, but I didn't want to mess with that. I'm actually leveling a magicka DK right now, so I do have two characters, of course. So I'll try it out on the magicka DK, see how that goes, but I do like the stamina DK because you get that better stamina just for a whole lot of blocking, and then Templar can give you shards or repentance. You can, like I said, recover your own stamina through use of your magicka and through use of your ultimates. So, okay, that's the goal now for a PvE build is getting ultimates faster and sustaining the whole build. Okay, so you look at the gear. I'm using 5 Akavir Dragon Guard. Now the traits may look kind of random. I was trying to pick up what I could, but Reinforce is a nice one because it gives you a good boost on that armor. Divines is fine. Sturdy, honestly, would probably be better here. I have an infused pauldron because that's what I got, and reinforced. Well, I'm using 2 Bloodspawn in addition to the 5 Dragon Guard, and I'm also using 5 Powerful Assault. Now, this was previously not possible to use Powerful Assault and be in 5 Heavy, but thanks to our most recent update, the jewelry is now available, so I went and spent some of my Telvar on that. And you can see it still sells for a decent amount, so if you got some Telvar sitting around, you can probably make a little money off of those. Anyway, so the idea is, okay, we have Dragon Guard. This is helping us sustain our build, get some magic recovery, increase our healing taken, add some health, and reduce the cost of our ultimate abilities by 15%. Now, we also have Bloodspawn's Visage, which gives us a little bit of stamina recovery, which is fine. But really, we want this for the 2-piece bonus, where we have a 6% chance when we take damage to generate 15 ultimate and increase physical and spell resistance by over 6,000 for 6 seconds. And they can occur every 6 seconds. Now, 6% chance does not seem like a whole lot, like it's a 1 in 16 chance. But if you're tanking, you're getting hit off from all over, especially if you're taking multiple groups. And so, while it doesn't look like I have particularly impressive spell resistance and physical resistance, once I get my buffs on and Bloodspawn proccing, I am right at the resistance cap, which is all you really need. And like I said, honestly, you're going to be blocking most of the time. The resistance cap is not necessarily something you have to have. It's nice, but it's not the end-all be-all. Now, I also have this Powerful Assault set. Now, it gives you health, which is again very helpful as a tank. Stamina, again helpful. Weapon damage is actually not that helpful for us, but I really wanted the 5-piece bonus here, which is a nice group buff. Typically, your group is not going to be running this already, so this is very helpful. But you can give up to 4 friendly targets, which in a 4-person dungeon is your whole group. Within 10 meters, a buff of 157 weapon and spell damage for 15 seconds. This is actually a pretty nice buff, and I believe it's comparable to Spell Power Cure. Which, well, that's not quite as good as Spell Power Cure. But it is very helpful, and it actually stacks to Spell Power Cure. So, I was in a dungeon earlier today. I was running Powerful Assault. One of the Templar was running Spell Power Cure, the healer. And so between us, we were giving people like 400 extra weapon and spell damage. And so it was very nice group buffs going on, even for 4-man content. And so that's the goal of Powerful Assault. And you look at my enchants. I have Magic Recovery, and I went ahead and did a reduced stamina cost enchantment. You could do block cost reduction as well. All of these work fine. It's just mix and match whatever you feel like at this point. Because again, 4-man content, once you get figured out the tanking thing, it's actually not that bad. I find it easier than DPS, honestly. Healing can be a little bit more complicated, but it's not really. I feel more comfortable with support roles, that's just me. Anyway, so, like I said, 5 Dragon Guard, 5 Powerful Assault, and 2 Bloodspawn. Powerful Assault, I got a well-fitted bracers, so I'm looking for a better trade on that eventually. That's in progress. The drawback of this set is I'm actually wearing 5 heavy and 2 medium. So I'm not taking full advantage of my Undaunted passives. That's because I'm having to wear the 2 Powerful Assault. If I can get a Powerful Assault shield, okay, especially reinforced, that would be the ideal, because then I could have that powerful assault shield, put heavy Dragon Guard gauntlets on, and then move to a light shoulder, and so that would give me my 511. So that's still a goal I have. It could be a little bit more health, a little more resources all the way across with that Undaunted passive. But I mean, for now, it's working okay. So you can see where I'm at. Current bonus is 4% on my stats, so it could be 6% with that extra light there. And that really offsets losing that armor, especially from a piece that's not even reinforced. So that's the goal. And we would like to run 511. I'm not even sure Powerful Assault comes in shields, but I think it does, so I'm going to see what I can do. I'm not even holding any hope for getting a sharpened weapon on Powerful Assault, much less 2. And you see the ones I have now. I have a sharpened primary weapon on my front bar and a powered weapon on my back bar. And it doesn't matter what kind of weapon it is. And again, I have my reinforced shields. This particular shield for the Dragon Guard actually drops from a boss of one of the delves in Eastmarch. It's like the very southeast of Eastmarch, I believe. There's a delve there where the boss in the delve drops this. And I actually farmed it in like half an hour. I got 2 of them. It was pretty amazing. Especially when you see the price down there. It looks to be, could be running 30,000. We haven't sold anything recently, so I don't know. It's probably a little bit less now. Looking at my skill bar, front bar now, you have your Pierce Armor. This is your primary taunt because, again, it does some damage, but it taunts the enemy for 15 seconds, and it gives them major fracture, major breach. That helps your teammates around you do even more damage, because now, like on bosses at least, it reduces their armor for both physical and magical damage. And so it doesn't really have a huge impact on trash mobs, of course, but sometimes it's nice to taunt those to get them on you and clean up your DPS so they can do their thing. I have Unrelenting Grip. This will pull NPCs to you, or PCs for that matter, if you're in PvP, but I really just use it in PvE. It grants major expedition, but that's no big deal. The main thing is that it pulls the mob to me, and if I cannot pull the target, then I don't waste the magicka. That's actually very important, because I don't have too much magicka to begin with, and if I start spamming this, it really just put the drain on it. I have Heroic Slash. Again, this is another way to generate ultimate for this build. And again, the whole idea is generating ultimate, but also buffing the group and using that to help everyone out. I have Choking Talons. This gives basically it's an AoE route, player-based AoE route. So it roots everyone around you within 6 meters. It doesn't really apply to bosses, but the idea of this is for this trash mobs. So on boss fights, I don't even use talons or the chains, because usually there's no trash mobs. If they call in trash mobs, I can chain them in and talons them, but generally I'm not using those skills otherwise. They certainly don't apply to bosses. Then I have my Igneous Shield on my primary bar. And again, this gives you a damage shield, and you get twice as the user, but it gives pretty decent, at least it's based on your health. So if you want to do, you really just pump up your health and give your team massive damage shields. But I try to play it a little bit more moderate. I don't have to get that hardcore into it and try and experimental stuff. But about 4,400 damage shield. It's not bad. And right now I'm using Spell Wall as my ultimate. It's a very cheap ultimate. Basically, it automatically blocks all attacks at no cost and reflects all projectiles for 7 seconds. So it's cheap ultimate because I'm getting the 15% reduction because of the Akaviri Dragon Guard, so 85 ultimate. And basically, automatically blocks and reflects everything for 7 seconds. So that gives you time, if you're in a pinch, to buff, to swap bars and rebuff, reapply buffs, and or if you need to res someone and get that started, that's a nice way to go too. It's kind of an emergency ultimate. If you're low on resources and you don't have a whole lot of ultimate, this is a good thing to just pop and say, okay, get some resources back. It's not as big as using a higher cost ultimate, but in a pinch, it can be helpful. So generally what I do is I'll go into a group of mobs, like first trash mobs, I'll talons them, pull in any archers or mages that are trying to shoot the group from a distance, and the idea is that your DPS work a whole lot better if you can get all the NPCs or most of the NPCs all in one place, because their AoEs aren't generally that big, but they're pretty brutal. So if you just bring everyone within like a 6-meter radius, and then your DPS and even your Templars are going to be destroying these trash mobs. And so that's the idea, and you can just weave in your heroic slashes just so you can generate ultimate on trash mobs. You don't need to drop any ultimates there. You shouldn't need to. And it does some damage too, and it reduces their movement speed so that they don't tend to get his way as easily either. And if you see something that's a little bit tougher, it's still, it's not a boss, but it's kind of a tougher guy. You want to go ahead and taunt it, just make sure. Generally, the talons will bring a whole lot of aggro your way anyhow, but if you want to make sure, you always use your pierce armor. Looking at the back bar, my ultimate here, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that, is Standard of Might. And you can see the cost there, 213 ultimate, which is pretty low considering that at the most basic level, I believe, is 250 without all the buffs on. Anyway, we get it down to 213. So again, this is our higher cost ultimate, and the idea is that with battle or passive, it gives us a lot more stats back. So if I tend to use this if we have a stationary boss. Sometimes you'll have a boss that likes to move around, and so a stationary standard like this is not really going to be that helpful. But if you have a boss that stays in one place, where you can taunt him and keep him in one place, then this is the kind of thing that you would want to use here. Again, it reduces damage taken, increases your damage done, reduces damage taken. Your allies can activate a synergy, does some damage, and doesn't really immobilize a boss, but it still does the damage at least. And it does major defile if you actually have non-boss mobs in there. So a lot of this stuff doesn't particularly apply to bosses. It gives you the damage though, and it reduces your damage taken, which is significant. And being an ultimate, it gives you all your stats back. That's kind of the goal there. If we were doing a little more serious raiding, then we'd want to make sure we learned Warhorn, and we probably have that in some kind of rotation between some, like the Templar or whatever. I haven't finished morphing mine yet. I keep forgetting to put it in my bar when I turn in quests and things, but it'll get there. So anyhow, so I have Standard of Might there. Buffs, I have Shuffle, which is major evasion buff, which is actually pretty nice. And it's always good to dodge some attacks. It's less that you have to block, less that you have to take. And I have Volatile Armor. This is my armor and spell resistance buff, and it lasts for 20 seconds. It does a little bit of DPS, but the main thing is it is providing that protection to you. So those are our buffs. Those are pre-fight buffs, and generally I like to open combat with a boss with Inner Rage, because the allies can activate the synergy, do a little bit extra damage, And the nice thing about activating synergies, having your allies activate synergies, again, if they have the Undaunted passives active, that means they can restore some of their own stats as well. Now, at the beginning of the fight, that's not a big deal. But overall, it's helpful, especially if they're wearing. There's a trial set that you actually get some other benefits for activating synergies. I'm not quite sure what that is, because, like I said, it's not really my thing. Anyway, so I mean that's our ranged taunt, which is actually pretty helpful in various situations. That's a nice way to start the fight. I have Venomous Claw here because I didn't really have anything else I wanted to put in the bar. So I just added another damage ability. Just throw it on this bar. Just hit that dot on them every so often. Every time I come back to this bar to buff up. And again, Resolving Vigor. This is how I proc Powerful Assault. So Powerful Assault, you cast an Assault ability. That means the Assault skill line from PvP. Now, Assault, we have these 4 skills. Could do Caltrops, okay, but it costs a ton of stamina. It's almost 7,000. Vigor only costs 2,000 stamina, and it actually gives your allies a bit of healing. Now, generally, it's not going to be that much, so not terribly worried about that. In a pinch, it could be nice, and we're on this bar where I have the powered weapon, so I get a little bit of boost there too. So it does do some healing, but the main goal of having Vigor here, I actually use that as a pre-combat buff because it gives my allies that extra weapon and spell damage going into the fight, and every time I come back to this bar, I make sure I hit that every 5 seconds or so, I believe it is. No, it's 10. Powerful Assault actually goes for 15 seconds. Sorry. So generally, I time my buffs according to Powerful Assault. So I'll end up casting Shuffle and Volatile Armor a little bit early. But what I do is I'll start by casting Shuffle, Volatile Armor, and then Vigor. Longest buff first, next longest, and then the shortest. And then by the time that's run out, I come back to this bar and just repeat the process. But then I do Vigor first, and then Shuffle, and then Volatile Armor. Anyway, it's a whole thing. And then of course I mix in Venomous Claw, because every time I come back to this bar, and okay, it lasts for 10 seconds. I have a few seconds where it's not active, but it's nice to keep that dot active. It's just doing a little bit more DPS on the boss. Anyway, and so that's the general concept of this PVE Stam DK tank build. For reference, whoops, I am an Imperial, so I get 12% extra health, 10% extra stamina, and melee attacks have 10% chance to restore 7% of your max health. That's why it's important to weave your attacks, weave your light attacks with your Heroic Slash and occasionally Pierce Armor on a boss. Again, any of these might be able to proc the extra healing. You never know when that's going to be helpful. You can't really count on it, but it's a nice bonus when it happens. Anyway, so that's the skills there. For the champion points, it's been a while since I looked at this, honestly. I put 10% reduction of stamina costs and 10% reduction of magic costs. 15% increased magic recovery, 10% increased stamina recovery. I could just take all of those points and put into one of the others, but that's fine. And I threw 1 into healthy just because. 1 point in the time lane just because, and then 11% on block cost reduction. Actually I could take this 27, put over here under cost reduction on the blocking. That might be best, but anyway, that's the idea. Over here in blue, I put 30 points in the blessed. Yeah, I mean, increase healing done. Actually, before I put Vigor on my bar, I used to have the coagulating blood there. But that's before I found the powerful assault. And so that, I mean, that's an alternative. I probably should respec this though. Shattering blows against shielded targets. Yeah. Kind of the nice thing here though is the 30 points there unlocks riposte, which gives you a chance to, when you're blocking, to return damage to the attacker. Just a little bit more damage. It's only like 600 DPS when it procs, but you know, it's kind of nice. And this gives you a little damage boost too. Again, 100 points in the Mighty, because even though I'm not doing much damage, I like to do some damage as a tank. And 40 into Thaumaturge for my effectiveness of dots. Because I am using the Venomous Claw, and it's actually helpful in PvP too. That may occur. That actually may help on Choking Talons as well. I'm not quite sure. Don't put any points in the Precise Strikes. We're not running high crit or anything like that, so there's no reason there. Piercing, it's not a huge deal as a tank. DPS might certainly be more interested here, but generally they do that through their armor sets nowadays. So again, not a big deal. So moving on to red. I think I have most of mine into Hardy and Elemental Defender. But 22.5% reduction in each. I put 13 into Thick Skinned. Reduced damage from dots. And 15 into Quick Recovery. Just get 5% boost there. And so that's my champion points. It's a little bit hard to make them where it's very useful in both PvE and PvP. Since I mainly do PvE in this character as well as no CP PvP, I tend to use the CP for my actual dungeon taking builds or approach. Anyway, so that's the PvE build. Let me move on to my my PvP build, which is honestly not terribly different. Now, this is a very specific build. I mean, it's a very specific goal in mind. Let's see if I can find. There it is. I recently made a change to this. I'll go ahead and put that there. Anyway, now the idea behind this, and you know, I doubt we have Emperor. No, but we have no Emperor. That's good. Let me go ahead and go into Azura Star and show you what kind of stats we're looking at here. This is where I generally PvP. Sometimes I go into True Flame or Hatteras, but most of my time it's been PvP in Azura Star, so I tend to make no CP PvP builds. So yeah. Honestly, it wouldn't be that different if I went into a CP campaign. I really wouldn't change anything about the build. Ooh, sold hat. Okay. So, here I am in PvP. You can see I have 31k health, almost 27k stamina, and almost 13k magicka. Again, not a huge emphasis on damage. I'm not even my primary bar though, so let me swap that around. Still not a huge emphasis on damage. Decent spell and physical resist, and some crit resist now, because I am wearing 5 Faceli's Guile, 5 Powerful Assault, and the 2 Bloodspawn. I think I actually have an Impen Bloodspawn helmet somewhere, just not in this character, I guess. Yeah, if you have the ability, if you have multiple Bloodspawn heavy helmets, yeah, go ahead and put an Impenetrable on here, if possible. Even in no CP PvP, Impenetrable is helpful. So, like I said, 5 Faceli's Guile, 5 Powerful Assault, and the 2 Bloodspawns. So really all I've changed is I've gone from Dragon Guard to Fasala's Guile. Now, Fasala's Guile drops from your rewards from the Worthy, which you might have seen. I have a few of here in my inbox. In fact, the inbox is full, so that's a problem we have to deal with pretty quickly here. Now, Fasala's gives you 2 max health bonuses, which is nice. Adds healing taken. And it says, when you take direct damage or damage from a ground-targeted attack, you reduce the attacker's healing received by 50% for 2 seconds. Now, that's pretty significant, even if it's only for 2 seconds. It's pretty powerful. And so, if someone's beating on you, that means your friends are going to be more easily able to kill whoever's attacking you, and they won't be able to get as much healing done. This is actually very helpful if you can draw the attention of Templars or anyone who's just really tanky, has a lot of good self-healing. Now, that doesn't work against everyone, but the idea of this build is for a small to medium-sized group, where you can have one person that goes out and tries to pull all the attention, while the friends kind of come in and destroy the rest of the people there. You're not necessarily going to kill anyone with this build. I have killed people, which just means they're actually kind of bad. Sorry to say. Generally, I'm not going to kill anyone except by getting a lucky leap on someone who's low health. That's about it. But you can really annoy people, and you can. It's kind of a debuff night. Is kind of how we call it, I think. It's really frustrating to fight because I've fought some before, and you don't always realize right off you're fighting someone with Fasala's Guile because you're trying to heal yourself sometimes. If I'm on my Templar, and it's not working as well as you like. So it's pretty annoying in that regard. Now again, Powerful Assault's doing the same thing that we talked about with the PVE, and same with Bloodspawn. There's nothing different there. The only difference now is we're debuffing the healing of people that are attacking us. So the goal is to get people to attack us. And we have high health, so we can again, high health, good stamina, so we can withstand quite a bit of people beating on us. Again, we have some Magicka recovery, a little bit more than we have stamina recovery. In fact, I forgot to mention it, but I am using the Atronach Mundus. Again, the idea being that if I'm blocking, then the way that we can regen our stamina is through that using Igneous Shield for our Helping Hands passive in Earthen Heart. Yeah. Any of these would work. The problem is if you're a stamina player, the only one that's really helpful, I guess you could use Igneous. I have another source of Major Brutality I'll talk about though. Fossilize is nice, but generally you leave that to the Magicka DKs because you don't have time to be going around spamming that on different people. And Ash Clouds is really expensive. I mean, it's a good duration. That's worth considering, actually. Only if you know people are going to be staying in one place. So that's the problem with Ash Cloud. It's pretty stationary. You can toss it into a breach when people are trying to enter. You keep your defending, that kind of thing, and it does slow them down. It has a nice snare on it. Any group worth their salt, though, is using retreating maneuvers as they come into a keep like that, though. So it's questionable importance. It's actually more helpful if you just stand in that breach and use Choking Talon. So it's not, again, not it's all situational at that point. Anyway, so that's the gear, and again, the idea is to debuff the healing of those around us, CC them, root them, and just generally annoy them while your teammates beat the crap out of them. So looking at the skills, you don't need a taunt here, so I've moved Heroic Slash to my first spot. Again, this is basically my spammable, even though it doesn't really spamming it doesn't really help with their heroism. I need something that I can do consistent damage with. It's not huge damage, but it does damage, and it's a snare. And it does minor maim. You're actually doing minor maim on a lot of people with this build. Because now that's what your choking talons will do as well. It does do physical damage also. But then the synergy does magic damage. It's kind of an odd spell. Cost Magica does physical damage and synergizes for magic damage. It's a little bit hard to understand. But it does give the minor maim as well, which reduces the damage that they deal out. I have 2 dots on this build. Venomous Claw, which we talked about in the last build. It's a nice little dot that does poison damage. 12% more damage every 2 seconds. So this one you don't want to spam. Okay, you just want to hit it once on the target and let it tick, because it's going to do some more damage as it goes. The other one I have, like I said, just recently added, is Noxious Breath. Again, it's damage over time, but it's AoE, and gives them Major Fracture, which reduces their physical resistance by 5,280. So if you have any stamina users in your group, really buffs what they can do against the target. So the 2 dots, and then I have the slash, which I basically spam in combat as I'm doing my talons, locking people down, getting my stamina back if necessary. And then I also have Invasion. This is my gap closer. This is how I get from one place to another, because as a Dragonite you don't have a whole lot of inherent mobility. If you're Magica Dragonite, you tend to go Vampire to get access to Elusive Mist or something like that. But as a Stamina Dragonite, Invasion is a good option. Even Magica Invasion is a good option. And again, the goal is not to do damage, it's just close the gap on people and lock them down in place so your friends can come beat the crap out of them. I have the Spell Wall ultimate. Again, very helpful, very nice, cheap ultimate. Both of my ultimates are actually very cheap here. 100 in this one. It depends if I'm on in a defensive position or if I need to be a little bit more offensive. So if I'm in a defensive position, I'll hit Spell Wall. Again, it gives me some resources back and blocks and reflects attacks, as stated before. On the other bar, though, I have right now I have Dawnbreaker slotted. That's not what I use, though. I just take Flight usually. I'm trying to morph Dawnbreaker. That's why I was there, I think. But generally, I use Take Flight because it does some nice damage. It's a relatively cheap ultimate, and its AoE hits a pretty good radius, and it knocks people to back and stuns them. So if they're not ready for this attack, you can really just mess up a whole group of people. Or if they're engaged with your allies already, you can just jump in and just, really set them off balance and just really put them in a vulnerable position. So it's very helpful in an offensive situation. It has good range too. I'm using forward momentum. Typically you would see Rally here for a standard stamina character. What I've noticed, though, is when you get locked down in snares, even as a DK with almost, 26k stamina, whatever we had, 26.5, rather than break free, it's a lot easier to hit this one skill for 2,000 stamina, which automatically removes all the snares and immobilizations, and gives you immunity to those same snares for 8 seconds. This actually solves an important problem that we face in PvP, where we have Sorks that are just locking us down in cases, or other Dragonites with the Talons. Any roots in general, but those are the main ones that you see. You don't necessarily see the Bombard spammers like you used to, but it would apply there as well. And so the idea is, the main trouble you have, especially when you're running like a medium-sized group, and in my guild, our team tends to be Magicka heavy. And the problem is, if you get stuck inside a negate and you're encased, you really need a good way to get out of that. Now, that means I can hit my forward momentum and get out of it. And theoretically, one of these days, soon, I'll be able to morph rapid maneuver into retreating maneuvers, and that'll be able to get all my allies out of that same situation. Because it grants immunity to snares and immobilizations. Because that's a tactic that we run into a little bit more frequently now, and some of you may have noticed this as well. People will negate you and then keep you under that negate using either encase or talents. Just roots in general keeping you in place. Which honestly, if you're a Magicka user, you're rooted under a negate, that means you can't do anything. You're basically dead. You can break free from one root, but they're just going to give you that root one more time. They just keep stacking those roots. If, break free from an encase, here's another encase. Same thing with talents. And if you're a Magicka user, you don't have a whole lot of stamina to be breaking free from that stuff. I've actually experimented on my Magicka Templar using forward momentum, using a two-hander instead of dual wield on my offensive bar. And it's interesting. It's a little hard to get used to, but I'm beginning to wonder if that's where I have to go with that, with some of these groups that we've been fighting. But anyway, that's the idea behind forward momentum. I have Refigure, again, procs the Powerful Assault. I already mentioned Noxious Breath. Shuffle, again, nice to have the major evasion. Also gives you a little bit of immunity from snares and mobilizations. And rapid maneuver, again, just for maneuverability. Again, I run in a Magicka heavy group, so it's helpful if the stamina users are running rapids. Helps us get from one place to another a little bit more quickly. And once I get this morph to retreating, it'll be even more helpful. I don't always get to play my DK in PvP because I tend to have to play my Templar because we need healers. But it's always nice when I get a break from it and get to try something else. Anyway, so this is what I'm running on my DK. It's pretty useful stuff. I mean, it's a certain play style, so it's not for everyone, and it really just depends, like for PvP at least, the group that you're running with. I wouldn't go out solo in open world PvP with a build like this, because wearing something like Fasalas and not being able to, having a group-oriented build like this, you're not going to really kill too many people on your own. You really need people around you to really make it all work nicely, and so you can help them and they can help you. It has to be a really a nice mutual thing. So that's what I've been running as a Stam DK. I say Stam, it's a little bit of hybrid because there is a little bit more emphasis on the Magicka recovery and using these certain Magicka skills as ways of sustaining the process. Because stamina builds, typically you wouldn't expect to see 689 stam recovery on a typical stamina build. If I was playing a Stam Nightblade, I couldn't have less than like 1500 here. And even if I had 1500, I'd still be running siphoning attacks. Because it's just not that viable. Especially if someone's throwing stamina poisons at you or something like that. But on DK, you can get away with that stuff because of the inherent sustain built into your class. It's actually very nice. I kind of wish I'd gotten into Dragonite a little bit sooner and figured out some of this stuff a little bit earlier. Like I said, overall, the goal, even my goal of starting Templar way back when and then starting the Dragonite, is to be able to play in PVE dungeons and farm the gear I need for PvP. It actually is very helpful in that regard, because if you queue up in the PVE group finder as a tank, tend to get a group very quickly. Even as a healer, you tend to get a group fairly quickly as well. A little bit more fast as a tank, I've found, but still pretty good effectiveness either way. And I actually enjoy playing support classes, it turns out. So that's actually really nice for me. I guess it depends on your personality. So I hope this has all been helpful. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Bye.